Hi, welcome to NDE TV. I'm Peggy Robinson. Today's guest is Leena Zafary, and she's going to share her near-death experience. Hi, Lena.
Hi, Peggy. Thank you so much for having me here today.
Well,
And
thank
thank
you. So you're
you.
in Las Vegas.
I am, yes, I am in Las Vegas, Nevada. I've been here for a few years, so I'm fairly new, but I'm here. I started out in California. So I grew up in Southern California. I've moved around quite a bit. A little bit background on me before I share my near-death experience that happened. Um, so I am one of those people that just grew up a little bit different, meaning I had these extra layer of senses and emotions and a way of seeing and being and feeling the world around me that never made sense to me. So I I didn't realize it at the time, but I would do a lot of one of those things to where I would just be out in my own world as a child and just kind of not here. My physical body would be here, but I would be here. But it didn't, it took, gosh, my entire life and my near death experience to figure out why I was the way I was. But I mean, I was just a regular, normal person. I was born in Afghanistan, but quickly after that, we moved here. So I've literally been here my entire life in the US. I've grown up in the US. I went to school here. My whole life experience is here. But my roots have never been far from me. I grew up in a really fairly large family. Parents, I'm one of five siblings, second one. My sister's older. So I have always had a big family, lots of aunts and uncles, lots of cousins, lots of fun. Had a really, really good life. I can't say that I had a tragic life or a hard life. I had a very good life, very loving life, surrounded by family, music, picnics, good upbringing. Everything has been good. So there's nothing that I could say, you know, I was a happy child. But within me, there was a duality. Within me, growing up, there was this, you know, me trying to get along and understand the world around me, my sensitivities, and then me escaping into the stars and the universe and having, my moments where I was completely in a different consciousness. I can use that word now, but at the time I had no language. So yeah, I would just be in my head, in my fantasy or in my world. And music was a big, 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 big factor in my life. I listened to a lot of music, and that's what really helped me be in this space, in this world, with how I was feeling inside alone in my mind, this love and bliss. I always thought it was just the music that was bringing it out in me. And then being in the world where I couldn't understand why people were being the way they were being, why people were saying one thing and feeling another, and why I felt what they felt. So there was this, kind of like, I didn't understand it really, the two, but it was just a part of my life. I figured everybody was like that. So, grew up normal in this country, went to school, had a normal life, but I never did anything like everybody else. I was always doing things the opposite, like backwards. I never did anything everybody else did the same way. It was like I always had my own, you know, odd way of doing things. And that included finding love and getting married. I got married at age 30, which for my culture and for where I come from, that's just something is wrong with you. So, by the time I was married, I was like, what is wrong with me? Right. Because that's what the world was like looking at me, and I could feel people's judgments and emotions and stuff. So my life has always been like, it's been perfect. But at the same time, it's not. Um, but it was still perfect. Anyway, so at 30, I get married. and I have two children. Happily married a wonderful guy. I had a good marriage, good life. Up until 30, I didn't think I can have kids. So when I got married and I had children, I was like, a miracle was delivered. I was so happy. I was in so much love. I was in so much joy. Like for me, my life purpose was to be at home and to take care of my kids. I nursed. I took care of them. They literally like my life was just devoted to my children. So it was just like there was no existence for me outside of that. So it was very yeah, it was one of those moms. um so then in 2014, now, granted, as perfect as my life was and as blissful as I was, there was also a part of me that was not living to my own true, authentic self. I really didn't know who I really was. You know, like it was just the mom and I was happy and that was it. Um, so in 2014, in 2013, um, I was living in California, was married. My son was 4, about to turn 5. So these dates are a little important because it's connected. But so my son's birthday is January 13, where he turns 5. And my daughter at the time is only 18 months old. And I'm also a nursing mother at that point. So I have a nursing child and a second child who's a little bit older. And we go on vacation. I go to Texas to visit family, and my brother lives in Houston. Stay there, had a wonderful time, great vacation. Decided to come home at the end, and on the way back, I get sick. I just got a cold, a flu, whatever it was. But by the time I got home, I don't know exactly what it was, but it was almost like when I would breathe, it would hurt. I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was suffocating and I couldn't nurse my daughter. It's like every time I tried to nurse, it would hurt. I couldn't breathe. So by the time I got home, this is early January, and something told me to go to the urgent care or ER just to make sure I'm okay. And again, at the time, I'm not thinking anything, but it's clearly a voice because up until that point in my life, my belief systems are very different. I'm not one to go to doctors or really trust. I really believed in natural stuff. I used to make and create my own things by now since I've been married. So I made my own everything. Anything that was wrong, I would deal with it myself. But this particular incident, I was like, no, I need to go get checked out. So I went to the hospital, get to the ER. They admit me right away. And next thing I know, I'm in a hospital room. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, okay, I'm fine. I just couldn't breathe, but I need to go home now. It was like I just wanted to get checked out. Well, one day turns into 3 days, and I'm 3 days. I'm going, you guys have to let me go. I am fine. I am good. I need to go. My daughter is waiting for me. I have to nurse her. Like my body was actually having a hard time because I don't
Right.
know if you know, but
I
when
did.
you
Yeah.
nurse and you don't nurse, it's not fun. It's not good.
You're
Your
concrete.
mind goes crazy, body goes crazy, and you're like, ah. So
Yeah.
here I am begging to go home, my son, and I'm worried. And at that point, I had this weird worry about not being able to go home for my son's birthday. And I'm thinking, all I could think to my head is, I gotta go home. I can't be here. He's got a birthday coming up. I can't not be there for his birthday. I have no idea what's happening to me. I have no idea what's going on. So here I am begging to go home. And on the third day, I'm actually sitting up in the hospital bed and I look healthy. I sound healthy. My husband at the time took a picture of me and my doctor standing next to me. And I actually had this on my, for the conference I did for IONS. I actually put the pictures up. So I shared those. So I was fine, but she decided to keep me one more night. And in that night, that night that she kept me for additional observation, I don't know what happened, but my health took a dive and they ended up rushing me to the ICU. I spent the next 5 days in the ICU. Right? ICU. So in the ICU, I don't know what's happening to me. I don't know what's going on with me physically. All I know is I keep waking up and I keep wanting to go home. I keep begging to go home. I'm like, look, I need to go home. My son's birthday's coming up. My daughter's at home. I left them and they haven't seen me. They don't know where I'm at. I need to go. That's the only memory I have being in the hospital, is like waking up and wanting to just get out. Well, 5 days into the ICU with my struggles, um, I find out now that the doctors in the hospital was telling my father, my family, and my husband at the time, they were all there at the hospital. They were telling them to kind of get ready to say their goodbyes and make arrangements, because at that point I had lost both of my lungs. Both of my lungs had completely collapsed. The x-rays, and they had told the doctors had told my family that I was not responding to anything. Both of my lungs had collapsed and there was nothing they could do for me. That was it. But a miracle happened. A miracle happened at that moment, on the fifth day. Now, I I am not really conscious these 5 days. So I don't have any other memory besides waking up and asking to go home. That's it. But all of the sudden, one day, I get up. I just wake up. I just get out of bed and I'm sitting at the edge of my bed and I'm sitting just like this. And I just look up and I'm like, okay, I'm fine. I wake up and I look around me and I can see, just like I'm looking, no, there's the walls. I'm in the ICU room. I know where I'm at. I look around, but there's this interesting thing that I'm looking, and I'm looking at the walls. It's white walls. It's the ICU room. I see that I'm in the hospital, but it's almost like I could see through the walls and I could see behind it. It's like it's out in space in the universe. It's darkness. I'm aware of that being there, but it's not something that I'm thinking, but I could just see it. And at that point, I so as I've shared this story many times, and I don't have a perception of time, what happened first, second, or third, but these things happened, and it happened maybe in this order, but I looked down and I looked to my left and my right. I looked to my right because I was sitting at the edge of the hospital bed and I saw my body. My body was literally laying there. My eyes were closed, but there was no like, oh no, what's wrong with me? It was just like, okay, there's my body. Cool. Then I looked at myself. And as I look at myself, I noticed that myself is completely clear, like a glass figurine. I could see the outline of my body, my legs, my hands, the way I'm sitting, but I'm completely clear. I could see right through myself. But I don't think anything of it. It's just an awareness. I look and I see, and I'm like, okay. And then all of a sudden, that is kind of like, you know, a voice. I hear a voice. It almost feels like the voice is coming from like out in front of me, but it's not. It's just in the space. But the voice starts to talk to me and says, Lena, you got to go back. You got to go back. Your kids are waiting for you, but you need to make the decision. And then I'm listening to this and I'm thinking, okay. And I'm not thinking, but I'm hearing this. And this voice is kind of, the way it's talking to me, it's very much like a motherly figure, motherly tone, kind of like, it's not yelling at me. It's not, but it's very stern. Like, okay, Lena, you got to go back. Your kids are waiting for you, but you're the only one who can make that decision and you need to decide. And as I'm listening to this, I'm also having other awarenesses. And as I look over to my left, I noticed that both of my kids are to my left. It's almost as if they're just kind of like sitting there playing with one another. They're just next to each other. They're just there. And it's when I look at my kids, To describe what happens, I can only use words that describe the light that just becomes brighter. It the air becomes fresher, everything becomes lighter. I am reminded of this like love, like this, like this feel, this, I don't know, there's this emotion that comes over, it wraps over, and I look at my kids and I'm like, I feel such love and bliss. I feel it's funny because even then I was reminded of the love that I felt, because literally when, how I told you when I first had kids, I would be in bliss when I would
Yes.
nurse them and I would
Uh-huh.
take care of them. I would feel that kind of love and bliss with them. But I thought that was normal to all moms. But when I saw them in my NDE and I felt that, it was that what I feel in life, but amplified. It was just beautiful. Um, which at that point, I'm hearing the voice again, still kind of reminding me and nudging me that I had to make a decision and that I needed to hurry up and make a decision. Kind of like, come on, Lena, hurry up. You got to make that decision. And I'm just kind of like looking around and absorbing what's happening. So I see my kids, all that. And then as all this is happening, my awareness just kind of lifts up and I'm looking up to my left. And as I see to my left, now I'm like seeing through the walls. And all I see now is like the black darkness of the universe, but it's not dark black to where it's like scary, but it's just like a dark room with still you can see the light inside the dark, but it's dark. But what I do see in the darkness is I see rows and rows of people sitting. But they're like the it's the shadow of them. They're just sitting. I cannot see their faces or their body, but I could see them. And I know that there are people who are still alive. That I know. I know that it's people here in my world, and these people are all sitting there praying for me. Like they've all gathered to pray for me. I cannot hear their prayers, but I can feel it. And as I'm feeling their prayers, I'm almost consumed with love and light, and I'm just filled with love and gratitude. And I look at them. I look at each person because I'm like, who is that? And as I look at them in the darkness, each person, the shadow that they kind of like lift up from where they are out in space, but they start to come closer to me. Like I can see them closer and I could see them, but it's almost like as they get closer and I could see the light, I could see them. I can't see who they are. I don't know who they are because all I see when they come close enough to me is the light of a candle. I literally see the flame. And I always say, next time I'm going to put a candle so I can show you. Everybody knows what the flame of a candle looks like, right? But everybody was the flame of a candle. Everybody was light. It was love. And I just felt this like, like this awareness, like, oh, they're just lights. And I did that like with a few different people. It was just kind of like my way of saying, okay, let me see if, somebody else. And I look at different spots and I see, and they show up and they come and they're a candle. And I look at them and I'm like, wow, okay. And that's about, at that point, it's almost like I'm going to turn off my camera right now and everything goes blank and zoom, everything got blank. Turned off. TV just got turned off. It was done. Next memory I have is going home. The next memory I have is getting ready to go home and see my kids. But stuff happened from the time I came back to the time I got to my car. Things happened, and I didn't find out until about about 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I had a conversation with, okay, so I was married at the time. And yes, after my experiences, I was one of the casualties of an NDE, and my marriage did not last, among some other relationships, but I did get a divorce. And yeah, so aftermath and all that and the healing. So I had a conversation with my ex-husband. I asked him, I'm like, hey, could you share with me anything you remember from the time I was in the hospital? What happened to me? What do you know? Fill in the blanks for me, because I don't remember. Well, he's like, oh yeah, sure. He sends me pictures. He's a picture taker and videos. So he starts sending me pictures and videos. And there's a picture of me. There's a picture of me sitting there in the hospital bed with a burger in my hands and soda and fries on the tray, and me in the hospital gown eating a burger, like just eating. And I'm thinking, wow, that happened? Wait a minute. I don't remember that. So now I'm processing so much more, right? So it turns out when I came back into my body, I have no memory of it. I came back into my body so fast. I have no memory of it. I don't know how, when I got back in. When I hear people saying that I squeezed in and it was painful and I felt this and that, I felt nothing. I felt nothing. I didn't even know that I was dying with both lungs gone. I didn't even know my health had deteriorated that bad. So I was clueless. So when I woke up, Peggy, I woke up and I sat up and asked for food. I sat up and I breathed on my own. I sat up and I had no idea what happened to me. And I walked home. I had a miraculous healing. Both lungs instantly healed. And I didn't find out about that for years later, that I had a miraculous healing. And yeah, so um, as you know, when you have those kind of experiences and miraculous healings, it doesn't just stop there. Life does not just say, okay, well, now here, so much more happens. And there's this like portal that's remains open, and I've had many, many other experiences, but the near-death experience, that was my near-death experience. I experienced it. And I don't have too many memories of it, but it's all coming into place now. Another very, very interesting revelation that came out of my NDE, right, that I discovered later. So I see the number 11 or 111 since over 30 years now. For whatever reason, one night I saw 9/11, and after that, the number 11 shows up on everything, everywhere. I got married on the 11th month. Everything happened to me on 11th. Good and bad things happened to me on 11. And I just recently found out that I think my NDE happened on 1/11. And the reason why I've realized that, or that has come to my thing, is because among one of the pictures that my ex-husband sent me was my hospital discharge letter, my prescription, and it was dated 1/12/2014. My son's birthday is 1/13. So I don't know, there's just miracle after miracle, right? My experience was of the most miraculous and the most positive and the most loving and the most, I came back with such a high, such love, that I was like a butterfly fluttering. I came back even more convinced that my life was to be a mom, to raise my kids. Like, they brought me back. The love that I felt for them was my entry back. Like, I didn't even think about it. I don't even remember. So I came back for my kids. So I've dedicated my life to being a mom, even up until this moment. But as you know, whether you know about near-death experiences, whether you know what you're having or what's happening to you or what's happened to you, the aftermath still happens and things happen. And one of the things that happened for me was all my senses went crazy. Um, um, I saw I saw my third child before I conceived her. Literally, like I saw her running in front of me. I was in Disneyland and I saw with my two kids and my husband, and I saw this at the time. I saw like an 8 or 9 year old child running with these beautiful curly locks. And I was like, I looked at my husband, I was like, there's our child. We're gonna have another child. And of course he looked at me, he's like, yeah, okay, honey. Yeah, kind of like, yeah, you just came home from the hospital after months. You're still on medication. Who knows what they throw it, so I didn't think much of it. He didn't think much of it. And everything that happened as after that was just a kind of like an afterthought, like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, that's just the medications. That's this. You just had a horrible experience. And yeah. So I never put thought to my experience, but you know, that was my near death. So if I can stop here and you can ask me any questions about that one or anything else.
Well, let's go back a ways. In the beginning, you said, you're always this different child, sensitive and things. Didn't you have some kind of experience as a baby?
I did. So, wow. That, okay. After I found out the fact that I had a near-death experience in 2014, after I learned about NDEs, after I learned about all these things, and after I attended my first IANS conference 3 years ago, yeah, 2 years ago, and I discovered, or I was introduced to PMH Atwaters, and I started to listen to her, and I read, and I got a couple of her books, Angelic Child and the Big Book of NDEs. And this woman has researched experiencers. So it's not an opinion. And the more I'm reading it, I'm like, oh my God, I know, I get it. I understand, I resonate, but what? So I went to my mom and I asked her, I'm like, hey, my parents, and I asked them if they can tell me anything about my birth, like what happened, like how did my birth happen? So my mom shared the story of my birth with me, and my father was there, my aunt was there. We do a lot of family stuff. So here we are, I'm sitting here and listening to the story of my birth, which ends up, I discovered I had an NDE at birth, without knowing anything. So would you like me to share that NDE with you?
Sure.
Okay. So the NDE that happened at birth, I have no memory of it. I just know from the after effects and the story that took place that's the only thing that makes sense in my mind. So it turns out, like I shared, I was born in Afghanistan. And this is going to really, really age me, so I'm going to go ahead and put it out there. But I was born in 1975. So that was a long time ago. And back then, life was a lot different, even here in the US, in America, as far as our scope of knowledge and our medical and, the way we practice medicine and everything. And of course, it was different back there in my hometown. So my mom was this young mom, and I was her second child. So her first child, my sister, when she was born, my poor mom, when she went to the hospital at the time, the hospitals, the way they were set up was kind of like labor rooms. So, and I'm sure they had private rooms too, but she was somewhere where there was, I think, another woman or a couple women that were also kind of like in their labor and kind of, going through the labor and waiting for delivery. And as she was sitting there, in her labor with my sister, another woman gave birth to like 4 or 5 kids. So she had like 4 babies, and that freaked my mom out, scared her. And here she is, a young girl, naive, first child. There's no information or anything. So she sees that, and it terrifies her, and it stops her labor, to the point where it stops her labor. She was like, I was like, I'm done. I'm not done. I'm not doing this. But that's not her choice. She had the baby. It was done. And of course, like they say, you forget the pains of birth, because here you are pregnant again, and she was pregnant again with me. And she remembered, and she refused to go to the hospital. She goes, nope, I'm not going to the hospital. I'm going to do a home birth. So here's my mom doing a home birth. And the story is that she was in labor with me for like 3 nights, 4 days, some ridiculous amount of time. And she's a little stubborn. And I think that's where my stubbornness comes from too. But she was in a lot of pain. And from what I found out, in those 4 days of labor that she was in, I was breech, so I was sideways. And I also had the umbilical cord wrapped around my neck. On the 4th night, it was like midnight, from what I'm told. They finally brought a shaman or a doctor. I'm not really sure at this point, but they brought somebody to help her deliver me, and I was born. And they told me that when I was born, I was literally black and blue. There was no human color to me. I was dark. And yet I survived. So I don't have memory of an NDE, but thinking what I think now, that 4 days of labor, no ICU, no NICU, no doctors, no medical attention. Here I am after 4 days, black and blue, with cord wrapped around me. And I survived it. I lived. But I also grew up as a child, very sensitive and very, like, I'm told that I cried a lot. I cried a lot. I never fit in. I felt things differently. So it really, really affected me as a child, but I didn't know. And my poor parents didn't know. My family didn't know. My curiosity was always there. That's why I always say I grew up in a very happy, loving home, in a very, very fortunate life in so many ways, so taken care of. But I was open to another world. I was in both, and I didn't know that, and I didn't know how to be. So I found myself in that space, in between space, the difference between what I felt and I was able to feel, and what I was feeling physically in the world around me. It was like there was that in between. So I spent a lot of time in that in between space. Until now. So
That's why I
my
love doing these
experience.
interviews, because I feel like we're in the in between when we talk about things like this.
Yeah, right. There's literally an in-between space. And before that in-between space was very uncomfortable.
Right.
And now that in-between space has become kind of like my healing space.
Right.
It's where I can sense what's around it, what's there, whose it is, if it's mine or somebody else's. It's almost like there's another view. I can see it. So
And it feels like there's so much less confusion. It's something that seems absolute or something in that space.
clarity, right?
Yes.
You could see good and you could see bad.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's like the place of insight or something, or
Yeah.
creativity, or I don't know, truth.
Yeah. So that was the experience as a child.
So after your NDE, how was things different?
You mean the one in, excuse me.
Yeah, after when you had the kids, and And now you've had this experience, and how did you fit that in your life? And who did you talk to about it? And how did you come to, where you are now with it?
Um, wow. It's been a journey. It's been 10 years, but the journey has been like a wild ride. Um, First of all, I did not know that I had an NDE or it was an NDE. I vividly remembered every part of what I described to you. I couldn't call it a dream because it wasn't a dream, but it happened. But it didn't make sense to my human world. So I kind of like blocked it. I shut it down, especially when like after I saw my daughter, it was almost like, I started to feel people and see people. And I had a couple experiences where it kind of terrified me. So I kind of shut down. Um, After my NDE, it was almost like when I was around people, it was almost like I would merge into who they are and I could feel what they were feeling. And wow, that was hard because not everybody feels happy, not everybody feels safe, not everybody feels healthy. Everybody has some sort of mental or emotional or physical pain that they're carrying within them. And for me, for the longest time, I was feeling in that. And I didn't know that that's what was happening, but I was picking it up as mine. I thought it
Right.
was,
And you
and so,
carry it around, and how do you
and I
cleanse
was,
from it?
and it, well, I did. How do you cleanse for something you don't know that's not yours that you need to cleanse from?
Right.
So my mind was like, oh my God, I'm going crazy. Why am I so emotional? Why am I 1 minute raging via what, to a moment of like such light that like I can look at a stranger, I can look at an animal, I can look at a flower, I can look at outside, and I feel such love that I just pour love out of me. I get tears, I get oxytocin release, I can taste, I can literally taste and smell and sense oxytocin, which is the hormone or molecule of bonding. It pours out of me. I thought
Do
this is
you
normal for
do you
everybody.
feel that if someone has fear, if they have anger, just as well as a good feeling?
No,
Okay. Because I pick it all up.
I oh no no, I feel people's pain in the same intensity as that I feel love.
Okay.
So and that was the hardest part coming back, because in my mind I couldn't understand. I had such an extremely loving, bright light experience on the other side. I came from such love and light to a world that wasn't. And I didn't know how to be here and still feel that much love, because I didn't realize it, but there's this, for me, there was this link and connection. See, my children, for me, activated something in my NDE that brought me back. But it's interesting how today, even and since, my children being around me activates my NDE experience. It's like a constant being in a space. So it's hard because I'm always living in that space, in that love, in that bliss, because I'm around my kids. I feel that. I can't help not feel it when I'm by myself, when I'm with my children, when I'm in my life, when I'm around my nature. I'm in bliss. I'm in such bliss that when I interact with the regular world, I could start to feel people's sadness. And because I didn't know the difference, it would start to like fill me up. And before I knew it, I was raging anger. Like I would be so angry and I couldn't understand it. I had no like I just it was really a hard time. And that's the space in between where I was and where I am. The difference was that, and I felt that difference. So it's taken me 10 years to make that middle space where I reside, make that calm and make that peaceful. And that's kind of been my work, is to understand that space and
It
to make
almost
that
makes us
calm. So
bipolar, where we have the
yeah.
extreme highs and extreme
I
lows,
know.
but it's not
I know.
our moods, it's everybody else's that we're picking up on. You can be around these people and you feel all this joy, like your kids or whatever, and then you're around these
Yeah.
people and all this anger and hate, and I'm like, gosh,
But it
it's
sucks because I didn't know that that's what it was.
right. No idea. Like we were a victim to it until we realized, okay, it's because I had my NDE. And so I was outside of my body. And so I was in the place where we pick up these telepathic feelings and emotions. And we had, you had a motherly figure speaking to you. I had the fatherly God figure speaking to me. And so we come back and it's like we have this extra sense that we didn't
Mhm.
have before, where we pick up and we feel these things and we don't know what's happening. Now we know what's happening. And now it's our job to try to divide it, calm it.
Yeah.
So
And Peggy, I've heard your story, and I know you've had experiences very, 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 very early in your life. So I know that you've had similar sensitivities from gathering from your stories that you've shared. And I resonated with a lot of that because I did too. I was a very, obviously sensitive child. I always had these abilities. I always felt people's emotions. I always heard people's thoughts. As a child, one of the things that was hard growing up for me was my confusion. And because I didn't know what it was, so I was confused. I could feel the difference, the in between space of people, meaning what people were thinking and what people were feeling and what people were saying. If it did not connect, and I didn't know that that's what it was, I could feel the difference between the space between where their thoughts and their emotions, like how far away they are from it, where they were. And for me, that translated as lying. Like I took that, I would see them as lying. Like my brain did not register that, emotions and thoughts, and none of that I didn't know. So for me, in my child mind or adult or whatever you want to call them, in my mind, I looked at people as liars. It's like, why are you lying? I would call people out
mhm.
because they couldn't understand. And that's why it was also hard to fit in, because it was almost like me being around, I would say things that people didn't want to expose, but I didn't know that because that's all I saw. That's all I felt, like I didn't know that was not supposed to be shown. So here I am saying stuff and I couldn't understand. Why are you lying? That's not. And I couldn't understand. But when I would look at them, I was like, wow, they really don't realize they're lying. But why do they not? It was hard, Peggy.
I
So
understand.
I
I was
I
the same
I
way.
I chose to just say, you know what? I'm just gonna go into my la la land, my fairyland. I put some music on, and I would be in my bliss. So when I say I lived in two worlds, it was that, and that's kind of like
That's
that's
what I
all because
say when I
you
worked
know.
for child protection is I got confessions really easy because you just know, you're just picking up on stuff. Like, and you're thinking they got they got a story to tell, but instead they're telling me this. They really want to tell me the story that I'm feeling that's there that they really want to tell me. And I get confessions so easily. I wasn't mean to them, or I just wanted to hear their story. Like, pick up on the little clips that they would just start to tell it and then back off. Well, I'd focus on those little clips, that's what they're really wanting to tell. I know, let's get back there.
Yeah,
And it's like, I
yeah.
just know they want to tell it. And it was never like, oh, I hate that I told that. It was like, okay, let's go to the next thing. What happens now? And that just
And I
moves.
couldn't understand. It was very interesting because there's this, just like there was a duality, how I felt between the world, there was also kind of like an interesting thing to how people responded to me. It was almost like, and this is weird, but some people would just look at me with eyes open in love, like as if they were looking at light and something majestic. And I'd be like, what are you looking at? I'm not that cute. What do what, what, like I couldn't understand how some people would look at me with such love and I would feel such love from them. I couldn't understand it. But those are the people that, feel love. And that's what I was feeling. I was feeling people's feelings. But I was, like, so I was like, okay, wow. And then at the same time, like 2 days later or 2 minutes later, somebody else would just look at me with so much hate and anger and despise. They would just be
Right.
like, you suck, and I was like, well, how could I be both? How is it that two people see me as such too dire? And that can
Right.
really play a mind thing on you, right? Like I
Right.
was getting my self-worth from
Right.
two
I,
very
right.
different
I used to
perspectives.
always think, and I still say it, I think I was born to be hated because I just felt hated my whole life. Like everybody's coming at me. Why am I always everybody's scapegoat? And and I still get that a lot. But then I started to realize that somebody that maybe's been bullied a lot and they don't know that they have all this pent up hidden anger, they find this innocent little thing and they think, oh, I get to be the bully now. I get to feel what it's like. And I was like being that for everybody. I was being everybody's thing that like, oh, that could really tear that apart real easy. And I was like, I was bringing out the worst in people. And I'm
Mm.
like, and I was actually said that on job interview one time. I like, that's a wrong thing to say in a job interview.
I was
I
like,
bring
not
out the
hiring
worst
you.
in people. We don't want to hire you, right? But I don't know. It's like if there's a creep in the room, they will find me. And so but then again, if you're creep searching, right, you're going to draw them out. So that's another thing that come in handy, working child protection is
Yeah.
I would be the one getting attacked on the job. Nobody else. I would be get the hatchet to my head. Somebody jumping off the porch and attacking me, jumping on top of the hood of my car as I'm leaving. I was getting attacked all the time. And I'm like, why am I getting attacked? I'm nice to everybody. Well, I wasn't realizing you can appear as uh, somebody's next victim. And I had to learn to start putting on a tougher exterior. So everybody that walked past me didn't think, oh, there's my next victim. I don't want to look like a victim. And I didn't know that I was. I was just this sweet and nice. It's hard to believe now because, I had to put on this tough exterior to let people know I'm not going to be your victim. So, because like they were coming out of the woodwork everywhere I went.
It's very interesting you're saying that because I was recently thinking about that. And I'm like, having these experiences on one hand has made me a complete mush. Like I'm a sucker. I'm a mush. Like if I see a picture or a commercial of a kid or something nice, I'm like, oh, and
I
I'm just
know.
okay, that's stupid. Like, it was just a commercial. Like I couldn't, like I was way too much. But at the same time, if I saw something sad or horrible, I would literally, there would be rage inside my body to the point to where it felt like I could explode. And I had to stop. Like, I can't be around, I can't be around, I can't even hear stories about child abuse. I can't see, I can't look. I don't, something happens to my entire physical body to this day where I feel the pain such extreme that I cannot tolerate. My body goes into this.
Right.
I get the same extreme reaction. If I see something loving and kind, I am tears. If I see something mean, sad, horrible, and cruel or evil, I cry and I hurts and I get filled with rage. I get so much rage to where I see myself coming out ready to just kick some ass. Like,
Right.
don't get in front of me. Like,
Mhm.
if you're in front of me and you're doing something that is not nice and kind or harmful to somebody, there's this part of me that just comes out and gets into people. I'm like, what? Wait, hold on a second. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And that's, like you said, that part of me, I had to create that. I had to create that strength that says, wait a minute, stop, hold on. What are you doing? Like, because the part of you that's nice and kind is, when you're in that state, you don't yell at people. You're like, you can't be in a state of love and yell at somebody.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like a different
Yeah.
frequency,
Yeah.
right?
And like sometimes I have to stand up to people and I have to stand up for the child or the
Yeah.
disabled or elderly, whatever situation's going on. But then to get myself back in that good place, for me personally, is my Christian music. Because that music, you know how you say you are as music, it puts me right now. It's like I just took a happy pill, but when I turned it on, because I'm back in that bliss state, I'm rejoicing and feeling all good. And it
Yeah.
kind of, for me personally, that's like, whatever music it is people go to that makes them feel better. Um, because the music just it does to me too, has that effect. Can totally
Well,
bring my joy out.
you know, okay, so can we talk about music and
Yes.
frequencies? Because that's really where my heart and soul is, right? Like, I think part of the reason why, you know, well, I had an experience in my mind. I came back to be love and light for my babies. I came back to make sure that these three humans have the love that they need to keep their light on so they can be good humans carrying forward. Because essentially, I guess, you know how, we are our past and they are us in our future, so they are me continuing after I
See, that's
leave.
how I see reincarnation.
That's
Is my
how I
great grandma, my grandma, my mom, me, my kids, my grandchildren, that's me. That's how I view reincarnation.
so I am the reincarnated blood cells, physical body, my hair, my eyes, my personality, my traits, my beliefs are everybody that came before me.
Exactly.
Every drop of cell belongs to somebody thousands of years behind in my heritage. That's how I see it.
Right.
So everything that came before me is right here. I am at this very moment everything that existed before me as human, my
I
line.
I actually saw that in a vision when my husband's mother died 5 years ago. I was getting ready for her funeral. I was going to do her eulogy. And I woke up and I was getting ready to do this. And all of a sudden I saw all these women and then my husband's grandma and then his mom. And they're like, we're passing the torch to you now.
It's
And
I mean
and so
similar.
I went in the house, farmhouse where the family's at, getting ready for the funeral. And I was like, I just thought they're like, I don't think they wanted to hear it because I think they thought they had to have the torch, like they were gonna fight me for that torch. But I had this vision, I just never forgot it. It was just like this string of women. Now I know the men are involved too, but what I was seeing was like this
Absolutely.
string of women. Because you think about it, we were in our grandmother's womb, because we were the egg that was in our mom, that was in hers. And she's like, we're passing the torch to you. And so I thought I have a responsibility, all of her grandchildren, to
Yeah.
make sure everybody's okay. So,
Yeah. So my babies are 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 me living on.
mhm.
They carry me in their cells, in their body, in their everything. And I'm further carried through what's to come as their children and their grandchildren. I will always forever be carried because my memory will live with them. You may forget me, but my kids will never forget me. It's like I'm creating that for them. And that's what I'm doing here is I'm creating my presence in this world for my children and for my children's children so that they can be the light in this world.
And
Because you
I
know what?
can see my grandmothers in my grandchildren.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing. Like tell my kids, it's like they don't know what I'm talking about. I was like, that is my granddaughter Allie when she was little. I was like, that is my ex-husband's mother. I see her, she's the exact same smile. I see her, and I still see her in her expressions. And then my other granddaughter Riley, I can see my grandma Milo, so be her great great grandma, and I see her in her. It's like I just see my grandma in her, and
Yeah.
they're there.
They're there. We're all unique, but we're all an accumulation of everything that came before us, in my opinion. I am everything that my mom is, my grandmother is, and their 10 grandmothers back and grandfathers. And also for my dad, I'm everything he is, and I'm everything his line of family. So to make me, so many humans had to live and have
Right.
experiences for me to come through. Like so many people had to come together and be together to
Yes.
create another life. And that's exactly this. And that's, to me, that is the earth, our continuum, our evolution. And for me, my purpose has been to come back and create that and be that for my children, and also for the rest of the world. Like if I can be and give that kind of love to my children, well, I can, it's there for anybody and everybody to access it. And it's like sunshine, you
Yeah.
know.
I see my
Sun does
boys are so
the sun
loving.
doesn't shine for just you or me, it shines for everybody,
Right. I
you
see
know.
my boys so loving to their children. And I just feel like I had to have done something right, you know? I was the mom that was like you, was nursing and just mom, 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 you know, just had to like on steroids. And I would
Yeah.
sit and spend most of my day just rocking my babies and singing to them. I have a lousy singing voice. I would spend all day. And I didn't real because I sat by a window in our trailer. I didn't realize that later the guy next door, the old guy next door, he could hear me. I thought, well, duh, sitting by the window. So I was like embarrassed. He said, oh, no, 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 it's wonderful. But I would spend almost every day sitting there in a rocking chair, just loving and singing to my babies. And so
Oh,
my boys are
I'm
such
feeling that,
good
Peggy.
guys. Huh?
I'm literally feeling that. What you just said, I felt the energy of it. Like, yeah, even though you did it God knows how many years back, but you felt that energy again, and I just felt it too.
And you know, when you see your kids being parents and loving, 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 loving your grandchildren so much, that's joy. I mean, that's just joy. So
And I can't wait, and I can't wait to live my life that long to where my children are older and have children, and I could see that. Like I'm excited for that. But for me right now, I look at my children right now, and Peggy, I mean, I hope to God, and I know that, but I pray that everybody loves their children as much, and every child feels that kind of love from a mother, whether it's their mother or some mother. But I hope that everybody feels that kind of a maternal love in their life, because I see it in my children, like you. When I became a mother, especially my son, my first one, oh my goodness, my life, I woke up, did what I had to do. I was married, so my husband, breakfast, eat food. My day was my son either laying on my chest so he can take a nap, or
mhm.
I would lay on the couch next to him so he can sleep, because I would nurse, so he would fall asleep. And I would just lay there for 2 hours so he could have restful sleep. I would put baby Einstein music for him. At the time, I didn't know all these things, but I was naturally putting frequencies and like music for them. I was by myself. My home was quiet. It would just be this, just Frank Sinatra or some nice good music at the time. And I would just put that so they could sleep. And I would just sit there and watch them sleep. That was my day.
Yep, that's where I was
Like,
too.
who
And
has time to do that? I did.
I did too. We
But
were
it was a
fortunate.
decision I made.
Yes,
But it
we
was a decision I it was a choice I made. It was a choice I made. And even though I would make that choice over and over again 100 times, but that choice also came with consequences, because a lot of mothers don't have that opportunity.
Right.
They don't have that choice. They can't do it, even if they wanted to. So I get that, and I respect that. And I'm grateful for the opportunity that I had, the life circumstance that I had that appointed me that ability. But yeah, I all I did was just be the sun in my children's life. And I see now they're so incredible. My son is 15, my daughter's 12 and 9. They get along so well. They play. They're so kind. They're so considerate. They're so loving. They're so grateful. And they're smart. And they don't fight with another. My little one pushes my buttons and she really tries to get my attention, and I can, whatever. But I look at my kids and I'm like, oh my God, I did something right. I don't know what I did, but these kids are amazing. They're full of love.
Yeah. When my
And that's
kids
what I
were
want.
when my kids were that age and a little older, I always told them, I will trust you until you give me reason not to. And they never did.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's where my focus has been too, is just being a mom to these 3 kids. Cause I feel like however much I can be good and contribute to the world, I could either do that, or I could take that goodness and plant those seeds and grow those goodnesses into 3 other souls that can multiply what I could do at once times 3, at least minimum. If those are the only 3 that have, come in contact with me. But I'm blessed. I have a big family. I have a bunch of nieces and nephews, and they are all incredible, all amazing,
My
full of love.
firstborn granddaughter, my oldest son's daughter, I babysat her the first year of her life while the parents were at work. And his ex-wife, she come home from work and I would be asleep on the couch with the baby taking a nap, because that's what I did with my boys,
Right?
right? And she would grab that baby up and toss it in bed. It's like she was told that they're supposed to cry themselves asleep. Like
Yeah.
they're supposed to self-soothe. I'm like, we're sleeping, we're taking a nap. Her toddler, her child, which is my son's stepdaughter, she was playing with my adopted kids outside. We're all good. And she would get so mad when she'd see me holding the baby after she's asleep. Like, you're supposed to put him in the bed, give him a bottle, and let him cry it out. It's like, not in my house.
You know what's funny is you saying that, and I'm sitting and going, oh my God. I had 3 kids, and all 3 of my kids, I did that. All 3 of them. I made sure all 3 of them had enough time, because my kids were quiet. My first 2, they were so loved. Even to this day, they are just calm, quiet, and happy. There's no like, it's been so. Even to my third child, I would still lay down and take naps with her so she could sleep. I still lounged around and did that for all 3 of my children. And do you know how many people tried to give me advice on how to parent? How many people came to me and told me those things? Well, you really shouldn't baby your kids so much. You really shouldn't do this. You really should do this. You shouldn't just lay around and let your child sleep on your chest. You shouldn't lay down. They shouldn't sleep in the bed with you. They should. I got everything, and I thank God I had the mind to just, I almost made a hand gesture, but I had the, I had the wisdom to say, okay, thank you for your opinion, and I still did my thing, and I'm so glad I did. I'm so
Well,
glad I
my
did,
boys,
because
when they were born, was 80 and 81. So I breastfed. Nobody breastfed back then. It was not popular.
back then
Nobody.
too. Wow.
You were supposed to do formula. Some people didn't even know what it was. Like I was sexually abusing my child or something. They thought it was gross. Like I got a lot of flack for breastfeeding. And I knew when I was pregnant for the first one, I'm going to breastfeed my kids. So that's what I did.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, there's always that, like even with my kids, because I breastfed them, because I was very healthy, I ate very well. I took very good care of my kids because I loved them so much. So there were so many benefits into that. Not only did they get a healthy upbringing, but I benefited from it. I
Right.
ate healthy because I knew that it was affecting my milk. I was happy because, and it all showed up in their development. My babies were
And
big,
you can
loving.
eat like a man and just get skinnier.
Yeah. Yeah, I
And
did.
that's the reason, not the reason I did it, but ended up being a benefit.
Yeah. Um, I forgot what I was saying.
But yeah, motherhood. And so,
Did we just spend like 20
yes,
minutes
we
talking
did.
about,
We
oh
got
my
off
God, sorry,
track.
I don't, where did that go?
We got off track. But yeah, but my granddaughter, she's about to, the one I was talking about, the way I would cuddle her. She's graduating high school next month.
Oh, how
And
beautiful.
we still have that bond. And I know it's just from all that cuddling and time. And
Absolutely.
she may not remember it, but the bond's there.
I agree.
So she'll see me and Granny, you know, she comes running through the door and gives you a big hug. It's like, I don't care, you're 18. I still get my cuddles.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful.
Yeah. But so I came back. I'll switch this on different view here. From my 25-year-old NDE, as you probably know, because I want to come back for my kids too. And ever since then, I've just had this gratitude that I got to raise my boys because so many women die of ectopic pregnancy, which I'm sure so many women die of, what you had and men. And when you have that miracle healing, you got to come back. And I just never took it for granted. I mean, yeah, I had depression because I lost my twins in my NDE. And so I had a lot of grief and anger and confusion and fear that I'm going to die again next time I get pregnant. But I wanted a baby so bad I could not try to get pregnant. And so every month, I was hoping to get pregnant. And then not until 7 years later, well, I got pregnant 1 month after I lost the twins, I was pregnant again and miscarried. But then nothing again for 7 years as we're going through a divorce. And my ex was not happy because he
Oh
didn't
my
want to pay
goodness.
child support for a fourth one.
No. You're like, couldn't you wait just a few more days?
But it ended up being another ectopic pregnancy. But my doctor listened to me this time when I went in the emergency room and said, I'm having pain. It's ectopic. He learned his lesson from 7 years prior when he didn't believe me. And then ended up, it was the biggest tool pregnancy I ever saw. And I was about dead with internal bleeding. So he said, like, basically, if you say it's ectopic, it's ectopic. And so he
Oh
did
yeah.
ultrasound and he said, all I'm seeing is shadow. And if it's not ectopic and I do the surgery, it will kill the baby. He says, so, but I have to go by what you say. And I said, it's ectopic. I knew it was. I mean, I did
Mm.
not want to lose this child, but I remembered that pain and I knew what this was. And I wanted the baby, whether my ex did or not. And as I'm going into surgery, my ex is sitting there beside me and he has a scowl on his face because he was wanting to take me to the gun club for a Valentine party that night as Valentine's. And he was missing his big party, right? And so he didn't want to be at the hospital, like me going to surgery, and he didn't want this baby anyway. And I made a promise to myself as we're sitting there that the next time I'm on my deathbed, I'm going to have a husband that loves me. I knew that I better get out of this marriage. Sitting there, getting ready, they're going to take this baby out of me. That's another topic. And he don't even care about this baby. It was like sealed the deal. And so, yeah, we got divorced not long after that. And I got remarried and we
You did?
adopted 9 kids.
That's beautiful. Okay,
And
that's
me and him, we had a miscarriage 3 years in a row every spring for 3 years when we first got married. And then we tried IVF, which I was too old by then. By the time technology was where I could do something, then I was like 42. And so I had quantity, but not quality. So I had 20 embryos, 19 fertilized. They put 5 in and they didn't make it. So I called to make the appointment to get 5 more in, and they said they didn't make it in the lab. So I'm hoping that those 19 are in heaven. They got to grow in heaven. And I'm hoping all my miscarriages and my ectopic pregnancies, I hope everybody's there waiting on me because I want to see them when I
you know,
die.
yeah, there's different people who's come back with different experiences. And I think we all get those ones of us who are fortunate enough to have an experience where not only do we die, but we get to come back, and we get to come back with things that we need to see, and things that we need to learn, and things that maybe we need to share for those around us that need to learn and see, the way I see it. So these near-death experiences, they're just like puzzles. They come back with different pieces of wisdom. We all come back with different insights and different abilities, and and to be able to talk about them and share them and piece them together, it just kind of creates this big beautiful image, in my opinion. So your experiences and mine and everybody else, it's like we're piecing together a complete different world.
And you saw the like silhouettes in the blackness in your NDE. Like I'm
Mhm.
using the word silhouette. I don't remember the word you use.
Yeah,
Like
shadow and silhouette. Yeah, like
yeah, yeah. And I saw this outline of people, but it was bright white light, not the darkness. And I've often wondered who were those people, Some will say, well, those were angels. Oh, okay, they're angels. Then sometimes late at night, I let my imagination wonder if those were my children.
mm.
Like in the future, that haven't passed, and if they could have been all those, like the ones I'm talking about, all these miscarriages, because during that NDE, I went to the future and saw what my kids' lives would be like if I didn't return. And that was real confusing when I started talking about this NDE, when I didn't have the word NDE back then in 1986. But like, how does that even possible? That's like a scene out of the Christmas Carol where they go and see a future, that never happened. And I'm like, I don't get it. You know, that like people say they have an NDE and they saw their funeral, but they didn't die. I don't get it. And so, I saw my boys upset and discussing the fact that mom had died. Because I had said to God right before this in heaven, I said, if you can prove to me my sons would be better off without me for whatever reasons, I agree to stay. But if not, I beg to return because I wanted to raise them. Because he already told me the answer was no, I couldn't go back. And so I'm trying to bargain here. And so then I see this man from behind, and I'm assuming that's Jesus. And so I'm right there beside him, and we dip down, we're above our trailer, we did it at the time, it's at night, and then the ceiling's like not there anymore, the roof. And I go down closer so I can hear, and I hear my boys discussing the fact that mom has died. And so when I come back later and I have this vivid memory of everything, like that doesn't make sense. And a lot of this doesn't make sense. When I started writing my book, I thought, where do I start? And I thought, okay, my earliest memory, my chronological order. Well, my first memory is I'm a baby in a baby bed, and I'm having this conversation with God. I'm like, how can I put that in there? Because that doesn't make sense. I don't even have a language old enough. How do I have this conversation with God? And I have this memory of it's like I remember heaven. I remember being in this beautiful white, just white place, but these women are like taking care of all us kids. Our every wish was their command.
Mhm.
So God wouldn't send me to this place. I said, God, you sent me to the wrong family. These people are weird and they don't like me. And I'm waiting to be switched because I remembered how well they took care of me. Okay. And I'm thinking, I can't write that because it don't make sense. People are going to think I'm nuts on the first page, the first paragraph. And something very clearly said, it's not your job to make sense. It's your job to report what you remember. It'll be somebody else's job to understand it. Well, that was in 2017 when I wrote my book. Now looking back, I can make sense of it because it was like you having this you're a spiritual kid. You didn't know that you may have had an NDE at birth. Like
Mhm.
maybe I was like had crib death or something. I don't know. Maybe I just had a spiritual experience. I don't know. But the thing is, that makes sense to me now. The how
Yeah.
I could remember heaven, but maybe just some kids do, and then years later they forget. But I never forgot that little memory, but it never made sense. I think I
Yeah.
remembered heaven, and I thought I got ripped off. Like, God, you didn't mean to send me here. Like, this is an awful family to send a kid to. I know you meant this perfect family for me, right? And then the
Right.
silence was my answer. I was alone, and I felt abandoned by God. And that come about when I had my 5-year-old NDE. after the drowning, I'm standing there on the road because I got the knowledge during that drowning, my family don't love me. And a voice said, God sends children here to be loved. That's why he sends them here. And so now I'm back from the drowning. I remember that. And that old feeling I had of I was sent to the wrong family come back. And so at 5 years old, I think I'm going to go back to the pond and I'm not going to fight it. I didn't know the word suicide, but I thought, I want to go back to what I was doing. I was flying. I was this ghost kid. I was having this good time. Why would I walk up the hill that family don't love me? And that's kind of like the will to live, our will to be here and participate in all this. Like, why would I? Like, love is that important.
Yeah. Yeah. No, totally resonate with that. For me, I always had this awareness that there was another awareness that I didn't understand. Even as a child, I had the awareness or the intellect to understand there was another layer that I didn't understand. And that's what it was, because as a child, I was seeing and feeling, but when I was speaking or questions, the adults or the world around me, I don't think they intentionally tried to, like, be mean or harm me or harsh me, but it was just kind of like, well, that's stupid. Well, that's weird. That's you're strange. You don't say that. That's not good. That's a sin. That's not, so it was constantly like there was a pushback against everything. So I just learned to go within and keep everything within. So I was living in my own bubble most of my life. But I was completely aware that there was something that I was seeing but not consciously comprehending. I was reading Rumi. Are you familiar with Rumi? I'm sure you Rumi,
I don't think so.
the poet Rumi.
I don't think so.
Okay. So Rumi is one of a philosopher, poet, spiritual healer, leader, whatever you want to call him, label him. But he's his every single day, all I see is his quotes, beautiful poetry. As a young child, I was attracted to his teachings, his poems. And here's another interesting that most people don't know. Rumi, okay, we're getting into something so different, but Rumi, the story behind Rumi, he was a poet, but there's different stories. So I don't want to say anything that somebody's gonna be like, well, that's not true. This is the truth of it. But I can only tell you the truth that it was in my mind and what I'd heard. So what I thought, Rumi to me was as a spiritual healer. He was a poet that was from my country, Afghanistan, who had ventured out into Persia and Iran and somehow started, with literature and publishing and poetry. So he kind of took on the face of being like belonging to the world in Persian. So I think there's like a little bit of oh, he's this and he's that. But in my mind, I was reading his poetries and I would be so moved. I would be so touched, but I couldn't understand what it was that moved me so much about it. I knew there was something within the words that I was reading that my mind was not comprehending, but my soul was loving. My heart was just like a sponge, would just pick it up and I would just be consumed with emotion, but I couldn't understand what it was. Like it didn't make sense.
That's how I was with Jim Reeves albums. I'm sure you've never heard of him.
No.
I would turn on the record player, sit on the floor for hours every day, listen to Jim Reeves albums. And I didn't know till maybe 10 years ago that he had died. So I was probably listening to this after, he had already died, but I didn't know. But I wanted him to be my father. And I look back later, it's like Jim Reeves, huh? My husband's name's Jim Robinson. Oh, that's kind of
That's
close.
funny. He manifested a gym. Wow.
But he
Yeah,
was just
music.
such a kind soul. I just felt his love through. I thought I had a dad when I listened to his albums. This really sweet man.
Yeah. And you know what? I think that's one of the things that I want to pass along is that, it took me dying and coming back and understanding what I didn't understand that I was doing to heal from whatever it was. And I guess what I want to say is that, you know, we don't have to die to learn those lessons to get those healings. You know what I mean? Like we don't have to have that to look and then to come back and to learn and then to heal from it. We can, you can. Everybody has that, and everybody has their own journey to whatever, however that unfolds for them. But part of, I feel like for me coming back and is to be able to share an experience so that when people do have experience, they first recognize it. And second, you know, integrate it as not just something that they can, but they know and they can embody it, whatever that means for them. But what I was trying to say is, Peggy, I don't know what I'm trying to say at this moment.
Give me five. I love that.
I was saying something, I swear. And oh, I know what I was trying to say. Sorry. Okay. What I was trying to say is we don't need to have a death to have that experience. We can literally put ourselves back into vibrational states, whether our conscious mind understands it or not. We can put ourselves in place of peace, in a place of joy, in a place of healing, and heal, whether our conscious mind understands it or not, because that's what I was doing before I understood and before I had the language. What I was doing is I was integrating and I was healing from the world, my duality, the world that I was in and the world that I was in, right, mentally and physically. And I was using music to do that. I used music and I didn't realize music is so therapeutic. And it doesn't have to be any particular type of music. Is from what I'm hearing and being downloaded with. It's not so much you have to listen to country music or you have to listen to this or that. It's, and here's the big aha for me. For me, it's music that moves you. It's music that moves your heart and soul in a loving light, not in a sad light. Because music, when we listen to music, there's music that makes us fall in love. There's music that makes us sad, and there's music that makes us happy and energetic. There's different emotions. So we have to be more conscious about the choices we make in the music. Every word in a song, every lyric in a song, every instrument played in a song affects you mentally, emotionally, and physically, because every song, every piece of music evokes a memory, evokes an emotion,
Time
and the
shift.
two of them together evoke a manifestation within the body. So if you're constantly ringing the bell, ding, 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 of love, right? What comes down is thoughts of love, emotions of love. And what happens is together they create healing in your body.
It reminds me of Trisha Yearwood's song, the song Remembers When. And she's at the counter checking out, and I think she hears a song, and it puts her back, reminds her of this guy she used to date. I think they were like in a airplane and they were above the clouds and they were like falling in love and this and that, and they're almost to Eden, and then it's like she like asks her heart to forgive her just this once for thinking about him. But like the
Oh, I need
song Remembers When, it's kind of like the song had control of her, not of she didn't. The song remembers how she felt and stuff. And you make what you're saying a while ago makes me think how when I listened to 70s music, which was my teenage rebellion years, I listened to that and I can remember me at that age in every one of those songs of how I felt so rebellious or I felt so heartbroken or I felt whatever it was that I was feeling. And it's just like this time warp takes us back. to, like, I could listen to Jim Reeves, and I can remember 5 years old sitting there listening to Jim Reeves, feeling like I want him to be my dad. Just, like Christmas songs, how they all transform us into feeling that same way every year.
Absolutely. It's funny because with all my experiences in the mental and emotional whatever I was trying to figure out through all this, like I was trying to decode my life without a handbook. Nobody around me in my life understood me. Nobody around me understood the experiences I had and the effects of it. And neither did I. So I was just this little, doing this, but it was always music that brought me to my center. And after my experiences, I also got into healing. So we didn't even get to talk about my spiritually transformative experience, which was like, oof. But after my experiences, when I came back, my ability to hear, feel, see frequency and energy was so extreme to where it's like I can't even put words to it. So the universe, as majestic as it is, because there's a solution to every problem, answer to every question, right? um the universe connected me with here and coming back to make sense of everything, connected me or put into my path bioacoustic biology, which is one of the many different healing modalities that I've learned. Obviously, I've had to heal myself, Peggy. When I came back, physically, emotionally, mentally, even though I had the most positive experiences, I was with love and light. There was nothing tragic in my experience. There was nothing tragic in my life. I was living a happy, healthy, incredibly blessed life in every way possible. But when I came back, there was a difference between the resonance of earth and the resonance of where I went. And I was the common denominator. So I was the one who was vibrating out of tune. Like my whole physical body was in this middle of vibration that was not nearly there, and it was not nearly here, and it was just like in the space. And I was like, not only do I not understand it, I feel it, I see it, I understand it, but nobody around me understands it. I was just this like wild, crazy tornado in the world around me. I was just, spinning. So in that space, I had to heal myself. I had to figure out how to calm my mind down. I had to figure out how to make sense of the two worlds. I had to learn what it meant, all the visions, all the downloads, everything. Every day was like a layer of understanding and knowing. And of course, when I started to study and research frequency and vibration, and I was blown away because now for the first time, I'm seeing life through sound and frequency. So everything that I've been able to feel and think and hear, like people's thoughts and emotions and how it affected me and all that, now all of a sudden, it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Today, we have the ability to vibrationally decode all of that and understand all of that. Every thought, every emotion, everything together, every item, every leaf, every fruit, everything has a frequency, and the frequency of every single thing is individual, and the frequency of things coming together is another frequency. So I got to learn all this. I understood how the human body works mentally, emotionally, and physically. Like I was just downloaded with all this knowledge, but I also had to learn it here in the physical world, how to make sense of it through sound frequency. And it was through all of these, like I had to, I learned how to do Reiki, learned how to heal myself, mental, emotional. And I learned everything there is to know about, well, not everything, because no matter how much you learn, you still learn nothing. Like I spend years learning, and I'm like, oh my God. And then 2 minutes later, I'm thinking, where did everything go? I don't know nothing. There's so much to know. So but yeah, so I understood my world more clearly through the integration and through the learning of what everything means here through sound, frequency, music, vibration, and all that.
I learned that I have to go to the bathroom when I get overwhelmed. I need that private little space just to collect my thoughts, to decompress everybody's stuff that's piling on me. And it could be a wonderful time, and it don't have to be, oh, like they're making me crazy or anything. It's just, I gotta center and find me and my own thoughts because I'm running out and I'm picking up on everybody. When I'm around a lot of people, I would get real drained and confused, and I'm likely to say something. I don't even know why I said it. And so I just gotta go to the bathroom and just breathe and like, okay, phew, there I am again. And that's just something
You
that
know, it's funny you saying that. I'm like, oh my God, hold on a second. No, I don't. Being a mom of young kids, there is no privacy in bathrooms.
okay.
There's no privacy in
Right. I understand. I remember those days.
Yeah. So for me, it's always been my headphones. I tune out.
That
When I
works.
need time for space for myself, I have to put in my headphones and I have to listen to something that puts me in that conscious space, whether
Mhm.
it's my music or my books or something I'm reading.
Even if I put headphones on just so I can't hear anything,
Oh, that's what I do.
works.
I block it
Okay.
out. So and then I have to keep my mind busy and my physical body in order for myself to come alive. So I'll clean house, I'll sweep, mop, do everything, and somehow I end up doing everything with
I
music to
just
my
had a
ears. Or
thought. When I go to town, I should just put on headphones just to block out all noise so I could go through and just hear
can
what I
I
have to
say
think.
I do. I do. I when I go grocery shopping, when I go any place, I always have my headphones on. I
Ah,
have to have my headphones on because if I'm not, if my mind, if my consciousness is not being connected to something of higher consciousness, whether it's through music or literature or whatever, podcast, something, I need to listen to something. If I don't, it's like me going out to the world as a sponge that's been drained
right.
and ready to be picked up everything around me. Peggy, when I say I'm sensitive, people think I'm just being like, oh, you just get over yourself. Like you're being sensitive, grow it up. Like, do this. But it's not that kind of sensitivity. It's not that kind of sensitivity. The sensitivity, or maybe there's another word for it, or I don't know. But the sensitivity I'm talking about is when I go out, I can I can feel people's emotions just being around them. I can feel and people's emotions in the products I buy. I can feel people's emotions in the food that I eat and buy. I feel the emotions of the animals. Like I'm not vegetarian. I eat everything. I'm but I'm very very selective. I can feel the energy, emotions. I know it says emotions, but yeah, I feel that of a fruit, of a vegetable, of the person cutting and cooking it. I am that crazy sensitive. And so, yeah, that makes me weird because I do have to protect myself and stay inside a lot. But, you know, it's part of life. And this is my outlet is to share and talk. And
My
yeah,
husband's a farmer and he likes to hunt, but he's finally realized I cannot eat anything that I saw it alive before
yes.
it was dead. I cannot. I mean, I thought I could, and I was doing this for a while. I would pray with it and say, no, tell the pig he just brought home from the auction. I'm sorry, but were you going to make food? And you're this and that. And then they kill it. I still can't eat it.
Yeah, I physically cannot. My body, something happens, I get like if I see any violence towards anything, my whole my whole stomach, my chakras start to just like vibrate and inflamed like energy, like it comes out of me. So I, yeah, when I say I'm energy sensitive, um it's a good thing, it's a bad thing, it's not really, but it's a way of life. And the
Yeah,
reason why I'm sharing and talking about it is because I know I'm not the only one.
right.
I'm not the only one who's had experiences, and I'm not the only one with sensitivities, and you don't have to have an NDE to be sensitive. And I feel like sensitivity is a gift.
Yeah. And I
Well,
don't
it's a curse
always,
until it becomes a gift.
right.
And the
And
gift is when
yeah,
we
I don't
realize,
always want it turned off. I want
yeah,
to be sensitive to people at certain times, but
yeah,
there's just times
absolutely.
I just like, I can't do this right now, or it's too much or something. But, I like that, I can be in a room full of people. It's like, oh, wow, they're really angry, or, well, she's really hurt. And nobody else notices what those people's going through. Like, don't you see that? I know, and they don't care. And so, yeah, I kind of like use that to my advantage, just to know what's going on, or go and talk to somebody, or avoid somebody because, like, they're in a good mood right now. Don't go pushing their buttons.
Yeah, yeah.
So, but yeah. So it's been really interesting talking to you.
Thank you.
Um, I told my husband this morning, I was like, I just feel like her and I have so much in common just on this mom level.
I,
So,
I've listened to many of your episodes, and I always felt that connection with you. I felt it instantly. I think it's a resonance that goes past our individual life and stories, even though they're different, but they're so similar.
yeah, because, not everybody's into motherhood. And some of this,
Apparently
that's our sole
not.
purpose for being here.
It's so sad. It breaks my heart. It breaks my heart that there's, yeah,
So, you started an IANS group in Las Vegas, is that right?
I did. I did. So after my near death experience, I had another spiritually transformative experience, which was really, really intense. And with that, um, that's the experience that left me so, oh my God. I, after that experience is when I literally, when I stood up and I literally had to look down, and I had to see if my feet were actually on the ground, because I felt like I was floating, not high, just levitating off the ground. And it's almost like I kind of had to like push myself down and to see that if I was on the ground. It was like a split second. It wasn't like this dramatic
I
thing
did
like,
that once. The first time I told my NDE at an IANS group in Columbus. And right
oh,
after that's the first time I ever told it publicly. And after I left, I felt I was levitating. I mean, I
yeah,
was on cloud nine. And we went to Walmart. I had to get my granddaughter a bicycle because she was going to her birthday party after this. And I had to look down. I was like, is my feet touching the floor? I
I
was that
saw
way for
it
hours.
because I did that and I was like, that's strange, but I swear it was almost like I could see. Because once you've had an out of body experience, once you've seen yourself outside of your physical body, it's, for me, now I can see when I'm right out. Sometimes I literally can feel my body right next to my physical body. Like sometimes I'm not
Yes.
fully in.
I thought it was scary when I
And
first started feeling that. I remember.
yeah,
And I
I
almost felt like there's two of me sitting there talking to this one person, and the one wanted to turn and say, would you shut up? Because she is talking and letting go, like talking out of this soul space, like we are now. And
yes,
the me wanted to not talk about those things, like keep it quiet, keep it locked up. And I just felt like there's two, so I was like, shut up. Like I can't get her to quit talking. But I was just like coming alive spiritually, knowing it was not acceptable at that time. Knowing this
yeah,
person is going to look at me like you have lost your mind. And so I want her to be quiet. And I started noticing that even before that in job interviews. I started noticing I was nervous about an interview, and then all of a sudden I was so relaxed. They asked me questions about myself, and it was like opening me up, and I was going too far with it. Like, and then like, shut up, you really shouldn't be saying this, you're screwing up the interview. But I just had to let the real me out. And just like I had said earlier, that as job interview, I had said, I bring out the worst in people. That's not a good thing to say in a job interview,
You
but it's
never
true.
want to
I
admit
bring
that.
up
I
names
would
to
never
people.
hire you. Peggy, I would say, I don't want you.
Right.
That's funny.
So yeah. So I don't want to keep you all day. And so I've really enjoyed talking to you, and good luck on your group.
Thank you so
I
much.
I had started a group here, Southeast Ohio, years ago, and then COVID come along.
Mm,
And I had just taken over a second group, one in Columbus, that I had was told my story the first time there, and I become their librarian, and I was really enjoying that. And then I started my group, and then COVID, and so I ended up starting this 3 years ago. So, and you
nice.
started a YouTube channel too?
I did. So, yeah, I would be woken up in the middle of the night with kind of like prompts, like, this is what it's called, this is what you got to do. And I'd wake up and I mean, it was like, yeah, it's been telling me to start my YouTube channel for, I want to say about 3 years. And with all the resistance, no matter how much I resisted, it's like one of those things that I just got to do. And so I started my YouTube or podcast where, I get interviewed and I also interview as well. So share NDE stories and all kinds of other stories. Mostly all the healing that has come afterwards is where my heart and soul is. Like, I love talking about my NDEs and I love hearing about NDEs. And I think NDEs are great. And I think it helps people see something outside. But I feel like all the gold nuggets, the wisdom, the gifts are in our stories that happen to us afterwards, how we feel in the world, how we sense in the world, and how we heal from the world, and how we behave. And I feel like that's part of my mission, is to bring that about. And as far as the Ions of Las Vegas, I started that with the same exact intention. When I discovered 4 years ago that what had happened to me was called a near-death experience, and that for the first time I realized I was not alone, one of the hardest things for me to process about my experiences was not so much the love and the light and all the things that I saw, was one thing: how do I share this with the world, and how will this be received? How do I do that? And I didn't know how to do that. And so when I because I thought I was alone. I thought I was alone. And if I was the only one, how do I tell people? Because from my background and my upbringing and my religious beliefs, is you
And
can't.
you're Muslim, right?
Yes. Well, I grew up Muslim.
Okay.
I don't identify as Muslim anymore. I I I have more love and more respect for Islam today than I did growing up my entire life. I have more belief, appreciation, respect, and knowledge for religion today than I had before my near death experiences. Before my near death experiences, the confusion and the anger that I felt left me not wanting to be a part of any religion. Like, I hated all of them. I thought they were all made no sense to me. Like, I couldn't understand why people would believe something that they couldn't explain, something that didn't make sense. Like, it made no sense. But after my ND and after my experiences, I understand what religion is now from a different viewpoint, and I understand it and I love and respect it in a different way. But I don't call myself religious. I do believe in God. I do believe in a higher power. I do believe in all the prophets, and I do believe in all the messengers, and I do believe in all the religions, but I'm not religious. I don't subscribe to anything. But as a Muslim growing up, I had the fear that a Muslim cannot change to another religion because, well, that's death. You leave Islam, you die. That's it. There's no choice. That's the impression I got. My mind took that. So I wasn't. But now, yeah, so not religious.
And it's cool that me being Christian, my ex-husband was Catholic, so I identified as Catholic for a long time till recently. I'm like, I'm not Catholic anymore. Um, but, and you, as your Muslim, Islamic background, that we can sit here and talk as mothers, as NDEers, as spiritual experiencers, as all these things, and that doesn't divide us
No.
as it would had years ago. Like I wouldn't had talked to a Muslim 9/11, right? Like all these stereotypes we have.
Yeah.
And the people have, I've had guests that have these stereotypes of conservatives, of Christians. They're like, fuck, like I'm just a religious person. I'm judgy, and I'm like, I'm not those things. I'm Peggy. Everybody has their own individual, even every Muslim doesn't think alike, or every Christian or every Catholic. None of them agree on everything and think just alike. So that's the
Yeah.
good thing about NDEs is it doesn't, all that doesn't matter.
No.
Now I
So I've
do
got
get upset when I see, like, I see 3 or 4 things on my news feed on Facebook a day, people saying spirituality is this and religion's that, like it's bad. And I'll leave a little comment. It doesn't have to be either or. You don't have to create this fear and divide and hate and separation. If people want to be
yeah.
religious, let them be religious. It doesn't make being spiritual better. Who's to say that if you're religious that they're not spiritual? I mean, just guys, please just stop.
Yeah. I want to thank you, and we're talking forever, so I'm keeping you here. But I would like to say one thing about that before we leave, about religion, is the understanding and the downloads that I have gotten about religion and my own personal evolution and integration about it is, um, it's every religion is right religion. There's no wrong religion. There's no bad religion. It's how we approach it and how we see it. For me, the distinction that comes to me is the difference is every religion is beautiful, but you have to be careful, because if you are in your religion from a space of fear in your heart, then you are not looking at the true religion. You're looking at all the parameters and the confinements and the rules and everything that you get lost into, because when you're doing anything out of fear, right, what you're swimming in a pool of fear. I don't care what religion you call it, but that's what it is, right? But at the same time, I feel like if you look at any religion from a space of love, what the religion is teaching from a space of love, from a space of gratitude, you can have any faith. And if you're in your faith from a space of love and oneness, they're all beautiful. So that I want to clear that, because religion is a very religion is a
Touchy,
very
touchy
touchy
subject.
topic subject, and it's very easy to
Yeah.
say something and offend people. And yeah, some people might love it, but you can easily offend people, and it is never my intention to offend anybody when it comes to religion. I speak about religion from my perspective that contains where I was outside of religion and in religion, and together I speak from that space. So I never want to make anybody feel like the religion that they're in is bad or wrong or in any way, shape, or form. My only message is do it from love.
Right. And my first knowledge of problem with people have problems with people's religion was my sister, when I was like 14, was dating a Catholic, and my stepdad got so mad. He hated black people. And I found out then he hated Catholics. So she ran away lived with my dad because she went out to date a Catholic. So when I was 17, I started dating a Catholic unintentionally. I mean, I was not to make him mad. And he liked him. But but yet my grandmother was mad. My mom's mom was mad that I married a Catholic because she brought out her Bible. She kept right in the middle of her coffee table, in front of her couch in the living room. And she said, "Is the Bible like this?" I said, "No, it's a different color." I was being a smart aleck. But so she wasn't happy with me at all that I had married a Catholic. Well, my ex-husband, his big Catholic family, I'm not so sure they wanted me in their family because I was Christian and not Catholic. Well, I converted, my boys were baptized Catholic and I converted and I went every holiday and did all that. But then when I got divorced, I thought, well, am I Catholic now? What am I? Or is that his church? So when I remarried, we started going to Christian churches. Well, they wanted nothing to do with me because they knew I was Catholic. And
Mm.
so I would hear them put down Catholics, even the ministers, a few times. I got walked out because they were putting down Catholics during their sermons, saying Catholics go to hell. They're like serpents and all this stuff. So I thought, okay, Christian's religion's not for me. So I'm going to go back to Catholic because my sons are asking me to go back to church, Catholic church. And said they said their dad and their family don't know where to go anymore. So I started back in the Catholic church. Well, my husband worked on the road a lot, so there'd be months of time, we'd live somewhere else, and we come home and want to go Catholic church. Well, everybody snubbed us because you're supposed to go every Sunday and Holy Day. And if you've missed church for a few years, they're going to snub you like you're some kind of awful sinner. And so I'm like, okay, I am church. Like I carry my religion with me, and it's my own religion, mixture of everything that I choose. And so there we go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there comes a point where you're just like, okay, that's enough. Yeah, that's enough. Gonna go my own way.
And my
Yeah.
husband, he's been like, can we go back to church? Because he became confirmed in the Catholic Church. So did my adopted kids. And he wants to go back to church. And I'm like, I just getting tired of getting dirty looks. And so
Yeah.
maybe I need to get over that. But then I'm like, I just can't stand and kneel and go to confession to take communion. I just can't. That's not where my love for God is. My love for God is talking to you, doing these interviews and I watch, even when I'm not doing these, I watch a lot of stuff. I fall asleep or when we're in the car, I'll listen to NDE stuff. I'm trying to figure out all this information out, and that's my religion. That's my spirituality. So it don't fit in anybody's box, but it's mine.
Hey, just to let you know, you're not alone in there because I think I know I'm in that space, and I know that other NDErs or other people who resonate with, our experiences are in there as well. So yeah, no, it completely makes sense.
And I'm in the process of building a little church in my front yard. It's just
Aw.
this. And I told my husband, I'm going to put this window right here and I'll put this stained glass stuff on here like I have on this. And I just want my little house of prayer, like somewhere I can go. And so I just want this little church
Oh
in my
my,
front yard. So as we're building.
that's beautiful. I would love a space like that for myself. Oh, that would be nice. That's what you
So
get
instead
from
of run to the bathroom, I can run to my church.
hey, perfect.
So
Wow.
I'll let you go and I'll get this sent out later today to you.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh, what's the name of your YouTube channel?
Vibrationally speaking with Lena Z.
Vibrational speaking. Okay. And I'll put a link to that in your description and something for your IONS group. I think I can pull that up offline, put a link to
Yeah,
your,
I can send you a link if you
okay.
like. So,
Okay.
and yeah, if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to, answer. They can contact me through the IANS website or through my email or however, if anybody has a question or
Are you
wants to
going
be.
to the conference this year in
I
Sedona?
am.
Are
I
you?
am. Are
Is it
you?
Sedona? Is that where it's at?
Arizona? Yeah, I think so.
Arizona? Or is it Tucson?
Yeah.
Tucson. It's somewhere
I
in
I know
Arizona.
it's in Arizona, but I don't know where because I don't know Arizona well enough. So it's in Arizona. That's all I
You've
know.
never been there?
No.
Okay. We went to Sedona years ago and I want to go back. It's so beautiful.
I've been wanting to go there. I've heard it's such a spiritual hub, and I've been yearning to go there. So it's interesting that the conference is there this year, and I'm going there. And I'm on a panel with Dr. Kainush and Sean Lather. So that should be
Okay.
a nice
I was
event. Are
on a
you going?
panel in Denver, Colorado in 2017, I think.
Okay, that was before I
I think.
discovered science.
Okay. Yeah. It's the only one I've been to. I was going to go 2 years ago and I had all these interviews set up for past guests I'd already, and I was going to interview them in person at the conference, and I was going to interview Martin Tanner, the vice president of IANS. I had all this stuff set up. and we were just headed out of the driveway. I was going to go buy a new camera for it, and we were getting ready to like book our flight and all that. And I opened up the mailbox, and it was a letter that Children's Services had took custody of my grandchildren, my youngest adopted son, him and his wife, their two little kids, who's lived with us half the time. So we were very bonded with them. And we had made reports ever since they were born, you know, trying to get something done. And here they removed them. And so they're asking to take kinship care. So I'm like, I'm not going nowhere. I'm going to be available for my grandkids. And we're still trying to get custody. So it's in appeals court now. We had to go through appeals court. So everything's looking good. But man, I had to kick butt on it.
Yeah. Are you
So
still going through that process?
yes, still going through that process. It's in appeals court now. Because we finally got our court date to get custody, and they canceled it right before court. The parents signed away their rights, and so they canceled our hearing, our petition for custody and for the home study. And we had waited a year and a half for this, and we finally, in January, we finally supposed to get it. And because we had court orders where the caseworkers were not doing our home study, and the judge court ordered it twice. And so they court ordered it again, and then we finally got our hearing, and they canceled it. It was supposed to be on Monday. The Friday before we got a call, they canceled it. They said our petitions were moot because the parents had signed over their permanent custody to the agency. Well, that violated our constitutional rights for due process.
Yeah.
And it violated the kids' rights because there's no hearing to say whether the agency should even have permanent custody of them. If there's no hearing, there was no hearing on that. There was no hearing on our home study, no hearing on our petition for custody. There's nothing.
Wow.
So it's in appeals court now.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm sending out thoughts and prayers
Thank you.
for a smooth outcome that is to the best for you and the children's highest good. And I hope that you get immediate good
I have
results and
not
good
got
news
to
from it.
see them in a year and a half. It'll be 2 years July. Not got to see them. And they was with us every week, every holiday, every weekend.
You know what? People don't realize, it's so sad that the decisions and the things and the dysfunctions that adults make, the choices that adults make, the wounds that they don't heal from, or whatever it is, you know, it impacts their children so much. And that just starts another cycle of another 100 years, or however many years, you know, a life cycle is. Typically, in my mind, I think we humans are given kind of like a 100-year lifespan. Now, whether we last that long is a different story, you know, but we get that lifetime. And it's like now we just started another cycle of another 100-year lifetime with more problems that if it doesn't get healed, they're going to turn around and procreate and perhaps create a similar cycle of dysfunction for the next. And I feel like that's where the new earth and the new evolution happens, is when that gets recycled, as opposed to whatever the hurt is, and we can heal and give love and give voice and give that calm, then everything grows from that forward. So, you know, I don't know, I guess we have to keep doing what we're doing, is keep these conversations and these energies and these frequencies out in the airways for people to hear, because they're getting plenty of the bad stuff already from TV, TikTok, and all the other channels that's constantly blaring blum 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 blum, you know, ads and frequencies and messages that just is a mess, in my opinion. But
yeah, I just posted a Facebook this the morning. I said, anybody that has a YouTube channel, make the world a better place with your channel.
right.
There's so many channels out there that are creating fear and hate and divide and anything for views.
Yes,
You know, anything.
and
Get those views to make
that's the
$100
hard part. Yeah,
and
and that's been
do
the
it for the
hard part
good.
coming out. Yeah, I agree. I think one of the reasons why, even though I resist and I hesitate putting myself forward like this, putting myself out in public view and whatever opinions that are going to come out of this is for my personal end result is I have 3 children that have phones in their hands, and they will have phones in their hands because I cannot take that away from them. That's part of living in this society. So if I want them to mix with the society, they're going to have a phone. And the thing is I can't control what's on their feed, but I can control what kind of feeds are out there, because some of the stuff that these kids look at, oh my God, my son, that some of the people that make content, it makes my heart hurt and burst. I'm like, really, really? So I feel like we owe it to our children to bring in some sort of truth in a different frequency, in a different language, in a different conversation, a different perspective that's more on the healing and positive side for these kids to look at. They're not going to probably search it, but if we put enough of them out, it's going to show up on their feed. It's going to disrupt the feed that they're already looking at, that's programming them into insecurities and doubts and all the bad negative emotions.
Our
So
world is literally at the tip of our finger.
it is. And that's why I'm like, I will take whatever kind of scrutiny or whatever kind of judgments and opinions that come my way by sharing my story, as crazy as it sounds. But you know what? I'm going to be a voice in this world that these kids are listening to. If not my child, maybe another child or somebody else will hear something that will resonate and help them heal.
Because there are people out there where we were right after our NDE that doesn't know what an NDE is, that thinks they're the only one, or that had it and didn't put the name NDE with it to even begin to understand it, or a spouse, married to somebody that's starting to talk about their NDE and they're thinking this person is crazy. And I know for my husband, he started hearing this stuff and he heard very clearly a lot of these marriages end in divorce after NDE, and his ears picked up, and he's like, I'm going to make sure I support you because I
Oh,
don't want that to happen to us. And though
that's
he may not understand it all, he's very supportive of it because I
your
don't
current
want
husband.
divorced.
Your current husband.
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah. My
Yeah.
first marriage lasted 16 years and this one's be 27 November. We were
Oh my
11 months too.
Wow, look at that. Okay. Yeah. So I've recently been divorced. I just got divorced like 2 years ago. So I'm fresh, freshly divorced. But yeah, no, I didn't know that that impacted a divorce because I had a good marriage. I married a good man. I didn't have any reason to be divorced, you know, but there was so much going on within me that it created that, it caused that. And, I don't regret anything.
We're
But
different when
yeah,
we come
I
back.
think I think I think had I known what had happened to me, had I known the changes that were happening to me were not bad and I can control them and I could understand them and what they meant, I think I would have perhaps changed things differently. I'm not saying that I would have stayed married or not married or this or that, but it's got to affect you when you know consciously what you're doing versus just trying to survive and live and deal.
Yeah. Yeah. I would just come back and I started seeing things differently. Like all I wanted before that NDE at 25 was do anything I had to do to keep him happy. I mean, I got my tubes tied at 20 years old, even though always wanted 10 kids to make him happy. So he didn't divorce me because he said, you will get your tubes tied, so I did. And then I was 25, I found out getting them reversed. And so I begged and begged, he finally let me. And that led to the tubal pregnancy. But after the tubal pregnancy at 25, I started thinking, his drinking, that's not funny anymore because our boys are going to get older and do I want them doing the same thing? And I went to college as a high school, 10 years. I went to college and I started thinking for myself more. And then, like I say, the second tubal pregnancy in 94, and he's sitting there, just wants to go drink and he's mad at me. He don't care about this baby. I knew I wasn't in love with him anymore. And
Mm,
so, but then in 96, we got divorced. Like a year later, I met my husband and
right.
he's my soulmate. Like I knew immediately. But see, you're a single girl. What I did is I went to the mirror one night. I was divorced and my ex was wanting to get back together. Only He says, by God, you'll put my name back on the deed, because he gave me the house in divorce. There's no reason to remarry him, right? And he's still a jerk. And so I looked, he didn't come home from work again. He's out to bars with the women and stuff. So I went to the mirror and I was like, God, I need you to arrange my marriage. You're my father. So I need you to arrange my marriage. And I just like seen this like leaf in the wind. It's like your only job is to trust, to follow God like a leaf follows the wind. And I was to go out that night, and God, if I trusted, God would lead me to my husband. And I went out that night and I met my husband. And as I'm getting ready to walk in this place, I like my thinking come in over my spirit. It's like, oh my God, what are you doing? You're going to this bar to find your husband? Like, you've been several places at night. Like, I'm following, we're led. And I'm like, oh, this is so stupid. I'm gonna turn on my car and get back. And I clearly heard, don't look left, don't look right. Look straight ahead. Like when I'm about to open the door, and there he was, in the back of him. A few months later, he gave me a scratched up note to come visit his daughters. And so I'm like, okay, I'm following these directions. I had to pull over because a month before I met him, I was driving through that exact same place, and this, as crazy as it sounds, never happened before. The spirit like hit me in the face with a windshield and said, there's a guy down that road. He has 2 kids and he needs you. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going insane. I better call the psychiatrist and get on medication. I thought, if that happens again, I forgot all about it. But I pull over and I'm start shaking. I'm going to meet this guy that has 2 kids that lives right down that road. And this just happened, this spirit thing right in my face a month before. And I was too afraid to go to, I went ahead and went to his house that night, but I almost turned and went home because I was so scared, shook up from it. So a few months after that, I started realizing, wait a minute, I knew you in high school. I had a crush on you in high school. And I remember, because I didn't tell him then, not for a long time, but I remember a spirit said to me, I was out in the smoking area, I need to go in and get a hot meal instead of out there, in the smoking area. And so I opened up the door and I saw him, and I heard a voice say, pay attention. This is what goodness looks like. That I wasn't to approach, I was just to observe. And so I started observing him in the cafeteria. I'd eat a hot meal and I'd see him, I'd just watch him. It's like he was goodness. Like I was this bad, rebellious kid. Like I felt I would like be a bad influence on him. I never approached, and then was getting ready to move to another area. And all of a sudden heard the voice again. It said that I was to go become a better person first, and then someday we would be together. And these memories started coming back after we were together 20 years later. I was like, of course, I didn't talk to anybody about this for the longest time. How does this work? A spirit come through you yelling, and then remember that back when I was 16, even before, I was told this, and he and I are together. And I just knew he was my soulmate. Like God arranged this way before I ever asked him to. I just asked him, and I become aware, and that's the truth. And so I'm telling you, girl, let your spirit guide you.
Well, hopefully my spirit guides me to the right part.
Exactly. They know.
Because
They know where you're supposed to be. And then we adopted 9 kids.
wow,
So
that's beautiful.
that's our love story.
Oh, I love it.
So
Yeah.
now, I'm not afraid to tell it. I tell it all the time. But back then, I'm like, nobody would believe this. I'm not sure if I believe it. I just have these memories. So I'll let you go. We've been chatting a really long time. Probably
I
nobody's going to
know.
listen to this for this long, but there it is.